everyone. Welcome to The Rundown, a show of reflective conversations with leaders to talk about the common good while combining faith, culture, and the latest news. I'm Bridget Richardson at University of St. Thomas in Houston, and I'm here with Emma Tacke. She's the Associate Director of Community Engagement with Catholic Mobilizing Network in Washington, D.C. So Emma, thank you so much for joining me.
Bridget, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Yeah, virtually. I like that. But it's going to be fun. You know, we're talking about a really serious topic. And in the news lately, we've seen how federal executions have started up again. And for, you know, when I was reading it and just looking at what Catholic Mobilizing Network was putting out, it was helping me make sense of the whole situation. So maybe you could explain a little bit about that starting again, and then also what Catholic Mobilizing Network is all about.
Sure, definitely. I think what might be most helpful is if I kind of give the context of what Catholic Mobilizing Network does and like kind of where we're coming from, and then kind of explain what's going on with the federal executions, if that sounds good.
Oh yeah, perfect. That's great.
Okay. So to give folks some background, in 2005, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops launched their campaign, the Catholic Bishops Campaign to End the Death Penalty. And so a few years after that, in 2008, murder victim family members, women religious, including Sister Helen Prejean, author of Dead Man Walking, USCCB staff, and death penalty abolitionists from around the country kind of convened, and they worked out a plan to help carry out the Bishops' campaign to end the use of the death penalty. So in 2009, that's when Catholic Mobilizing Network was founded, and we are a sponsored ministry of the Congregation of St. Joseph. So I've been with Catholic Mobilizing Network for a little over 3 years, and our mission is to end the use of the death penalty and promote restorative justice. And we do that through education, advocacy, and prayer. So we collaborate with a wide range of partners, including, the state anti-death penalty groups, death row exonerees, murder victim family members, the National Abolition Strategy Coalitions, our state Catholic conference directors, dioceses, parishes, religious orders, schools, universities, kind of anyone who cares about the death penalty or has been touched by the death penalty. We kind of, collaborate with everyone. So we're based in Washington, D.C., and in our 11 years as an organization, we focused on legislation, on death penalty legislation, kind of on the state level, because the strategy in the broader abolition movement is to repeal the death penalty state by state. Which, to speak to that, the past 10 years have really seen incredible progress in the death penalty abolition movement, which I've only been here 3 years, but it's been so exciting to kind of witness that in like real time of like, it's happening, we're doing it. So 22 states have officially abolished the death penalty, and 7 of those states have ended the death penalty in the last 10 years. So the last 10 years, 7 states have abolished. Colorado was the most recent one, being in March of this year, kind of right before everything kind of blew up in terms of the pandemic, especially in the U.S. So in the past 10 years, since CMN has been around, governors of 4 states have imposed moratoriums on executions in their states, which that is to say, a governor of a state, when they take office or anytime during their time in office, can say, while I'm governor, we will have no executions in Colorado or Pennsylvania or California. So it's been really exciting. 2/3 of the states in the country have moved away from the practice of capital punishment. So, several states still have the practice on the books, but only a handful really continue to carry out executions. And I know you're in Texas, and the students I'm addressing are in Texas as well. But even Texas, the Lone Star State has, which is notorious for its use of the death penalty. Death sentences have remained in the single digits for the past 5 years for Texas, which is incredible. This year, Texas has executed 3 people, the most recent being Billy Joe Wardlow on July 8th. 8 other execution dates in Texas have been withdrawn or stayed. due to the pandemic. But at this time, no execution dates are pending in 2020 for Texas. 3 execution dates have been scheduled for 2021. But really, it cannot be overstated kind of how impressive the movement in the abolition world has been in the recent years. Mm-hmm. So that brings us to what the heck is happening on the federal level with executions, because it's so out of step and out of tune with what we're seeing on the state level. Like, we're making all this progress in the states, and then we're seeing what's happening on a federal level, and it's kind of like that doesn't align with where we're moving forward. So yes, like you said at the beginning, there have been recent developments on the federal death penalty. So our attention at Catholic Mobilizing Network and within the broader abolition movement as well has shifted to incorporate how to stop the current administration from continuing its pursuit of carrying out death sentences. So if we go back to look at last summer, in July of 2019, the Department of Justice announced its plan to resume federal executions after nearly 17 years of no executions. So the last federal execution was in 2003 until this summer when they resumed. They scheduled 5 executions over the next several months, but due to like a barrage of all these legal challenges, all those executions were delayed. And then we flash forward to this summer, when in the middle of June, on June 15th, the Department of Justice announced that in July, 3 men were scheduled for execution within a 5-day period of one another, and then a 4th and a 5th execution were scheduled for the end of August. So this was deeply concerning. Since this June announcement, 7 men have been executed by the federal government, and I think their names deserve to be said. So I'm going to go ahead and name the folks who have been executed the past couple months. And those names are Daniel Lewis Lee. He was executed on July 14th. Wesley Ira Perkey was executed on July 16th. Dustin Lee Hunkin was executed on July 17th. Lesmond Mitchell was executed August 26th. Keith Joy Nelson was executed August 28th. William LaCroix was executed September 22nd. And Christopher Villalba was executed September 24th. So all 7 of these men were executed by lethal injection. Daniel Lewis Lee and Wesley Ira Perkey were executed even though their death warrants had expired. Dustin Lee Hunkin suffered from schizophrenia, Alzheimer's disease, and dementia. Lesmond Mitchell was the first Native American to be executed by the federal government in the modern era of the death penalty, and it was a violation of tribal sovereignty. Christopher Villalba, the most recent man to be executed by the federal government, was the first African American in this recent slew of executions. So it doesn't have to be said, but this is deeply, deeply concerning and alarming. And what we were so worried about, with the resumption of federal executions is we didn't know, how many would be scheduled, how many would be carried out. And we didn't want this to become like one more thing that was normalized, right? Like, we didn't want federal executions to be the norm because there hadn't been any federal executions since 2003. And so the resumption of the federal government carrying them out is really, really concerning. There's one more federal execution scheduled so far, and that is a man named Orlando Hall, and his execution is scheduled November 19th, 1 week before Thanksgiving. And we have an action that folks can take regarding that execution that I can talk about in just a minute. But, all this to say, Bridget, these trends that we're seeing on a state level where, we're kind of moving away from the practice, states are abolishing their death penalty. It's such a sharp contrast to what we're seeing by the federal government. It's so wrongheaded and out of step with where the rest of the country is going. And, the reason why the federal death penalty is wrong are the same reasons why the death penalty on a state level is wrong. It's riddled with errors and misconduct. And executions stem from our country's history of racial violence, with direct links to our past lynching of Black Americans. It's geographically isolated and arbitrary, and just like I said, out of step with the national trend of decreasing rates of executions and death sentences. So that's kind of the quick and dirty backdrop of what's been going on with federal executions. Yes, that was a lot I just gave you.
But I know this is information that you deal with on a daily basis. And, you said you've been in this role for 3 years. What made you even, begin to want to do this type of work and to be interested in being in a movement like this? And why do you think others maybe should be more in tune with what's happening in terms of both on the state level and federally?
Yes, well, I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school most of my life. My dad was a theology teacher for 27 years. He was my high school theology teacher, which as a teenager, having your dad as a teacher, I'm sure you can imagine I was just extremely cool in high school. But I have to credit my parents for really kind of hitting it home for me that the way we live our faith is by our actions and by the issues that we care about and invest our time into. So, my faith is very important to me, and it's really grounding. And I moved to D.C. after doing a year with the Jesuit Volunteer Corps Northwest in Seattle, Washington. And I worked for another Catholic advocacy organization and then moved on to Catholic Mobilizing Network. And, I was interested in, the criminal legal system. And it's so obvious that the system is just riddled with all of these tremendous errors, and it just perpetuates these cycles of trauma. And so, ending the death penalty, it's one way to help kind of restore or reform and build again our legal system. And I feel really grateful that I get to work for an organization that is faith-based, because this work can be really demoralizing and challenging. And I'm not even up close and personal. I'm not doing the direct services of having to witness executions or visit people on death row, but we're working on the education and the advocacy and the prayer side of things. But it's tough work, and there's still a lot of pushback from people who support the death penalty and who don't see the humanity of people on death row or understand or don't care that we're all children of God and we all have inherent human dignity that cannot be taken away, no matter the harm we may have caused or the harm we've experienced. So my Catholic faith kind of grounds me in that this work is important, and what I'm doing, we're on the right side of history here. And so I think, for young people who maybe haven't thought about the death penalty as kind of as part of the criminal legal system that needs to be reformed, I think they should really consider that this is an area of advocacy that needs, we need young people in the movement help continue and carry on this work. And I just have to plug, I'm always available for questions or for follow-up, and I am happy to share my email as well, because I love it when people reach out to me, especially if you're in Texas, because there's a lot of really great work to be done and a lot of really good work that is being done by the Texas Coalition Against Executions and by the Texas Catholic Conference. So this is just, it's a movement that is going places and getting good work done, but we need young people to come along.
And you had mentioned how your faith kind of just is the foundation for what you're doing. And I think it's so interesting with your parents and, your dad being a theology teacher and them helping or them forming you in that way. Why do you think a Catholic voice is so important in this conversation on human dignity? and also, reform within the law. Like how do you balance all of those pieces, and why do you think that Catholic voice is what maybe needs to be present?
Yes, good question. I think Catholic Mobilizing Network serves kind of a unique part of the abolition movement puzzle. Catholic Church teaching is really clear that the death penalty is inadmissible, and Pope Francis's encyclical that was published on the feast day of St. Francis just a few days ago really underscored that, listen, the church is serious. The death penalty is inadmissible. And we are called to honor the dignity of all people. And when we look at what it means to be pro-life, it has to be fully inclusive, right? From womb to tomb. And that includes people on death row. And there are so many lawmakers and decision makers and state leaders who are Catholic. And so appealing to their Catholic faith and kind of being that moral voice and reminder that's saying like, hey, like this is what the church says about the death penalty. Are you going to walk the walk? Someone that comes to mind for me is Attorney General William Barr, who is Catholic and yet has been, kind of one of the main instigators in terms of resuming federal executions. So I think just having, kind of beating the drum of the Catholic voice and the Catholic position around the death penalty is really crucial in the movement.
And what are those conversations like when you have to talk to people who are involved, who are Catholic, who are leaders in that way, and maybe for whatever reason, they're not including that in a part of their conscious activity? What are those conversations like for you and your team and the people who probably, I don't know, the hope is that they're well-meaning, but you want to hope as Catholics, we have like this one united voice and understanding of church teaching as well. So I'm just interested to understand from your team's perspective what that's like to do that type of dialogue work.
Yes, I think, one of the best ways to kind of change the hearts and minds of people of anyone, but, particularly looking at Catholics, reminding them of what the church says about the death penalty and kind of, underscoring what it means to honor human dignity and to, seek right relationship and to know that God has room for everyone. And, one of the best ways to kind of get at the heart of the issue is with personal story and personal testimony. So collaborating with people who have been exonerated from death row or who are murder victim family members or who have lost loved ones to executions, understanding those personal testimonies and giving space for those stories to be shared, I think is one of the most effective ways to kind of talk about the issue in a way that's really effective and transformative.
Yeah, and I love the depth of conversation that you're having can only be had in a context where it's possibly believers involved, right? The things that you can touch on or the things that you can say, or even if you reference scripture or church teaching, like that can only happen if there's that level of understanding. So it's kind of a cool opportunity that you have too to be transformative in that way, right?
Yes, totally. And it's all about, you really have to meet people where they are, whether they are, staunchly supportive of the death penalty and it's like, okay, we got our work cut out for us when it comes to this conversation. Or sometimes it's just a matter of like, hey, have you ever considered that? When it says like, what does it mean to be pro-life? That means, including the folks on death row. They say, well, Sister Helen Prejean says that the support for the death penalty is a mile long and an inch wide, which means, there may be broad support for the death penalty in some areas. But once you really understand the issue and understand how deeply unjust it is, it's like there's no way you can support the death penalty after learning more about it. Is what I think.
Yeah, I remember the first time I heard that quote, I sat with it for a little bit. I was like, oh my gosh, it's true. Once you see the errors in judgment, the things that are overlooked even in trials, the things that that are just not honoring the human dignity of the other. It's like this light bulb goes off, right?
Totally.
And so I'd love for you to talk about your upcoming conference and the title. I think if you can touch on why the title is what it is, I think it's just such a beautiful expression of what people could possibly learn by getting to know CMN and your work and the restorative things you do as well.
Yes. So we have a conference coming up at the end of the month, and it's called Harm, Healing, and Human Dignity, an all-virtual Catholic conference on restorative justice. So this conference is going to be totally virtual, of course, because of the pandemic, and it will take place on October 27th, 29th, and 31st. So we wanted to break up the days of the conference because Zoom fatigue is so real. And originally, Bridget, the conference was supposed to be this summer at the University of San Diego with the university's, Restorative Justice Center and the diocese. But of course, because of the pandemic, we kind of had to shift our plans and postpone the conference. And now we're doing it all virtual. But in a way, it's sort of a blessing in disguise because it kind of opens up the opportunity for people to attend the conference that might not have been able to travel to California or San Diego. So we're still doing it, in partnership with the Center for Restorative Justice at the University of San Diego and with the Office of Life, Peace, and Justice at the Diocese of San Diego. But I'm really excited. We have these amazing panelists and speakers and plenaries lined up. And just for folks who are hearing us say restorative justice and saying, what the heck is that? Restorative justice is a way of understanding crime and harm in terms of people and relationships impacted rather than like the law or the rule that was broken or violated. So restorative practices seek to really repair harm through transformative encounters that really model Jesus's reconciling way. So it's really, restorative justice is such a good example of the lived expression of Catholic social teaching principles, and it offers a framework for how to transform relationships. So this conference is going to be about what does it mean to implement those restorative practices in our communities at a really practical level. So yes, I am super excited for the conference. We have our mastermind, Caitlin Morneau, who is the director of restorative justice for Catholic Mobilizing Network. And she and our partners and the team has just been working tremendously hard to make this a really worthwhile use of people's time. And I encourage folks to register today. I believe the registration, I'll have to double check the prices, but all the information is on our website, and there's a group rate as well if folks want to register as kind of a cohort.
Yeah, awesome. And we'll include those links in the description too. And just to finish it all up, what are some things that you can say maybe to give people like maybe that's that call to action a little bit just to learn more, because it can be a little intimidating. This is such a big topic, right? With so many different levels. And I think especially with this topic, people come in sort of believing what they believe. And how do we help people just say, okay, let me come in with an open mind and just understand the depth of what you're saying, where the law meets human dignity, meets our Catholic faith, meets restoring a life to wholeness. Like how would you counsel someone in a community engagement session to be open and just learn more?
Well, first I will say if you are ready to take action against the death penalty, and if you're like, yes, I'm there, I believe we should end the death penalty, I really encourage people to sign our National Catholic Pledge to End the Death Penalty, which is open to people of goodwill and of all faith backgrounds, although it's geared towards Catholics. Anyone can sign it. That you write your name and it says, yes, I want to work for the abolition of the death penalty. And from there, that's a really good way to get on our email list for more resources and opportunities. So you can sign the pledge. And then another really timely action I want folks to take is our action for Orlando Hall, who is scheduled for federal execution on November 19th. We have a pre-written letter addressed to Attorney General Barr and to President Trump that folks can sign and send along electronically, which I will send you the link to do that. And they can personalize the letter as well. Personalized appeals are always more effective. So those are two actions for people who are there and ready to take action right away. And for those who are maybe still on the fence or have some more questions, first of all, go ahead and email me. I'd love to chat. That's the best part of this job, is like getting to interact with people. And then I really encourage just, exploring what does the Catholic Church say more in depth about the death penalty. We have a blog that kind of shares personal experiences about restorative justice and working on behalf of ending the death penalty, personal experiences. So again, that gets to the heart of like understanding, up close and personal testimonies from people who are really close to the issue. And then I think this is such a standard Catholic answer, but I'm saying it because I think it's true, is I really encourage people to pray on the issue. It's sometimes just things are moving so fast, and like you're getting such an information download, and you're just like making snap decisions of like, this is what I think about this, and that's what I think about that, and my mind is set, and I'm not changing my mind. So I think making time to pray and think really deeply on this issue, and to listen to like, what is God telling you when we say honor human dignity? What does that really look like? And what does it look like when it's hard? Like, this is a hard issue. But I think, our faith empowers us to do hard things and rise to the occasion.
I think that's probably one of the most true statements anyone could ever say. You just put that so succinctly and beautifully. So thank you, Emma, so much for sharing with us and for, educating us on this topic. And we'll definitely share the links for the conference. And we just really appreciate you and the work that you're doing as well.
Oh, Bridget, thank you so much. I'm so happy we had this opportunity to talk, and I'm not kidding. Really, you guys email me if you are a student and you have questions. I'm always happy to chat. So this has been so wonderful. Thank you.